ever feel like the world is changing faster than ever, especially in the business world? Today, we're diving into the heart of that change, exploring how global leadership is, well, it's being redefined through this lens of sustainability. We'll be unpacking a fascinating 2024 article. It's from the International Journal of Scientific Research and Management.
Oh, I know that one.
You do? Okay, great. So it argues that today's leaders, they need to be more than just profit-driven, right? They need to be stewards of a sustainable future.
It's a fascinating shift in perspective, isn't it? It's like we're moving from this narrow view of success, just focused on the bottom line, to a much wider lens, one that encompasses the well-being of our planet and society as a whole.
Right. It's not just about profits anymore. It's about responsible stewardship for the future. So what's driving this shift? I mean, why now?
Well, there are a few key factors at play here.
Okay.
We're seeing this perfect storm of heightened awareness, right, around climate change, dwindling resources, and social inequality.
Right.
On top of that, you've got stricter regulations, consumers demanding more sustainable products, and this massive wave of corporate social responsibility.
Right, CSR.
Yeah, CSR initiatives, because the whole world is waking up to the fact that business as usual, well, it just isn't sustainable.
Literally.
Literally.
It's like we're at this tipping point, and the pressure is on for businesses to step up. But how do you even begin to lead in this new reality? This article, the one we're diving into, it actually breaks down what it takes to be a global leader in sustainability. It highlights 6 core characteristics that really caught my eye.
And these aren't just nice-to-have qualities,
Right.
They're essential for navigating the complexities of our interconnected world.
Absolutely. First up is visionary thinking. Now, I know what you're thinking. Visionary thinking, isn't that a given for, any leader?
Yeah, you would think so.
But this goes beyond just having a vision for your company's future. This is about anticipating the future of our planet and our society.
Yeah.
And figuring out how your organization fits into that picture.
Exactly. These leaders are thinking decades ahead. Using tools like scenario analysis to imagine different possible futures and prepare for, a range of challenges.
So it's not just about having a vision, it's about actively shaping the future.
Right, exactly. Imagine you're the CEO of a major coffee company, right?
Okay, yeah.
Climate change is threatening coffee production in key regions.
Right.
A visionary leader in that situation, they wouldn't just cross their fingers and hope for the best.
Right.
They'd be investing in sustainable farming practices, maybe even researching drought-resistant coffee varieties to, future-proof their business. That's visionary thinking in action.
Wow. So it's not just about having a vision, it's about actively shaping the future. Okay, so we've got the vision thing down. What's next?
Next up is ethical orientation. This is all about walking the talk. It's about transparency in every aspect of your operations, accountability to your stakeholders, and having this, this rock-solid ethical framework guiding every decision.
Right, because it's one thing to talk about sustainability, but it's another thing entirely to actually live it.
Exactly, and that's what builds trust and credibility.
Right.
Which are essential for any leader, especially in today's world, where consumers and investors are increasingly holding companies accountable for their actions.
Totally. Okay, next up we have cultural sensitivity. Now, I'll admit, when I first saw this on the list, I was a little surprised. What does culture have to do with sustainability?
It's a brilliant point, and it speaks to the complexity of leading in a globalized world. What works in one part of the world might not work in another. Sustainable leaders understand that global impact, it starts with local action.
Okay.
And they're sensitive to the unique customs, values, and challenges of different cultures.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where global ambitions meet local realities.
Exactly. Imagine a global clothing company, right?
Sure.
Trying to implement sustainable cotton sourcing practices.
Yeah.
They can't just waltz in and dictate terms to farmers in another country.
Right, of course not.
They need to understand the local context, work collaboratively with farmers, and find solutions that benefit everyone involved.
Makes sense. Okay, on to the next characteristic, and this one really resonates with me. Innovation and adaptability.
Oh, this is a big one. In a world that's constantly changing, the ability to innovate and adapt, it's crucial for any leader, but especially for those championing sustainability. These are the leaders who thrive on change, who see challenges as opportunities to do things differently
And better.
and better.
They're not afraid to experiment, to try new things, and to pivot when needed.
Exactly. They foster a test and learn environment within their organizations,
Love that.
encouraging their teams to constantly innovate and find new solutions to, complex problems.
It's like they're hardwired to find those win-win solutions that benefit both the planet and their bottom line.
Totally. Take the issue of plastic waste.
Oh, yeah, big one.
Instead of seeing it as this insurmountable problem, these leaders are exploring innovative solutions,
Like what?
like bioplastics,
Okay.
made from algae or mushroom roots, materials that break down naturally and don't pollute the environment. It's about constantly seeking new and better ways of doing things.
Right, and it seems like they're out there. We just have to find them. Okay, up next we have collaborative leadership. This one seems pretty self-explanatory, but I'm guessing there's more to it than meets the eye.
Absolutely. In the past, leadership was often seen as this solitary pursuit, with the CEO at the top calling all the shots.
Right, the lone wolf at the top.
Yeah, but today's sustainability challenges, they're too complex for any one person or organization to tackle alone.
It's like trying to solve a massive puzzle with only a few pieces. You need all the pieces to see the bigger picture.
Exactly. Collaborative leaders understand this. They recognize that they don't have all the answers, and that the best solutions, they often come from bringing together diverse perspectives and expertise.
Makes sense.
They actively seek out partnerships with NGOs, government agencies, even their competitors,
Wow.
to tackle these shared challenges.
It's like that old saying, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And finally, we come to the last characteristic, but certainly not the least, systems thinking. This one always sounds a bit abstract to me. Can you break it down?
Think of it like this. Systems thinking is the ability to see the interconnectedness of everything.
Okay.
It's understanding that every action has a ripple effect, and that seemingly isolated issues are often interconnected in surprising ways.
Okay, so give us a concrete example. How does a leader with systems thinking approach a complex issue like climate change?
A leader with systems thinking, they wouldn't just focus on reducing their company's carbon footprint in isolation.
Right.
They would recognize that climate change is a symptom of a larger system that's out of balance. A system that includes our energy production, our transportation systems, our agricultural practices, even our consumption patterns.
It's like that butterfly effect, only on a global scale. One small change can have a ripple effect throughout the entire system.
Precisely. And that's what makes systems thinking so powerful.
Yeah.
It allows leaders to see the bigger picture,
Yeah.
to understand the complex relationships between different parts of the system, and to identify leverage points where even small interventions can have a significant impact.
Wow, powerful stuff. Okay, so we've unpacked what makes these leaders tick. Now I'm dying to know, how do they actually put these principles into practice? What strategies do they use to turn those lofty ideals into tangible action?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. And luckily, this research paper doesn't disappoint.
Okay, good.
It delves into the nitty-gritty of how these leaders are weaving sustainability into the very fabric of their organizations.
I like it.
And trust me, they're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk. And they've got the data to prove it.
They better.
Are you ready to explore these strategies?
Absolutely. Let's do this. I want to know how they turn theory into action.
Well, first up, they're aligning their organizational goals with the UN's Sustainable Development Goals.
Right, the SDGs. I remember when those were first announced back in 2015. It was a pretty big deal. But how are these leaders actually using them? It's one thing to have them on your website, but how do you weave them into the DNA of your organization?
You're right. It's not enough to just pay lip service to the SDGs. These leaders are using them as a framework for action,
Okay.
setting specific, measurable targets related to the goals, tracking their progress, and transparently reporting their successes and failures.
So it's about taking those big, hairy, audacious goals and breaking them down into actionable steps, into something tangible and measurable.
Exactly. And it's about being transparent and accountable throughout the process. These leaders are publishing detailed sustainability reports, often verified by third-party auditors, to demonstrate their commitment to the SDGs and to showcase their progress.
Transparency and accountability. two qualities that seem to be emerging as hallmarks of sustainable leadership.
Absolutely. And it's not just about showcasing their successes. It's also about being upfront about the challenges they face and the areas where they're, still striving to improve.
So they're not afraid to admit when they're not perfect.
No. It's about continuous improvement, always pushing themselves to do better.
It's refreshing to hear about leaders who are willing to be so open and honest about their sustainability journey, warts and all.
It's about building trust,
Yeah?
both internally and externally. Now, remember we talked about CSR earlier? Well, it's not just a buzzword for these leaders, it's a way of life.
Right, CSR, or corporate social responsibility. It's something we hear a lot about these days. But I'm curious to see how these leaders are actually putting it into practice. Give us some specifics. What does CSR look like in action?
Think employee volunteer programs, where companies encourage their staff to give back to the community.
Okay.
Or ethical supply chains, where they're sourcing their materials and products responsibly,
Right.
ensuring fair labor practices and safe working conditions.
So it's not just about writing a check to a charity at the end of the year to make themselves feel good.
No.
It's about embedding social and environmental responsibility into every aspect of their operations.
Exactly. It's about aligning their business practices with their values and making a tangible difference in the world. Take Patagonia, for example.
Yeah, Patagonia, good one.
They've built their entire brand around sustainability, from using recycled materials in their clothing to donating a percentage of their sales to environmental organizations.
I love their stuff.
And guess what? They're wildly successful.
They are.
It's proof that you can do good and do well at the same time.
Okay, that actually reminds me, I was just thinking about how much I love my Patagonia jacket, and it turns out they're a prime example of a company that's truly walking the walk when it comes to CSR.
It's true. They're practically synonymous with sustainable business practices. And they've been pioneers in so many ways.
Totally. And speaking of pioneers, the research paper also highlights the importance of green tech investment. Can you tell us more about that?
Green tech is no longer a niche sector. It's at the forefront of the sustainability movement. And these leaders understand that investing in renewable energy, waste reduction technologies, and sustainable product design, it isn't just good for the planet.
Right.
It's good for business.
It's like we're finally realizing that what's good for the planet is often good for the bottom line, too.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just swapping out light bulbs for LEDs.
Okay.
We're talking about companies investing in large-scale renewable energy projects like solar and wind farms to power their operations. They're implementing circular economy principles to minimize waste and create closed-loop systems where resources are constantly reused and recycled.
So they're really thinking ahead.
And they're designing products with sustainability in mind, using durable, recyclable materials and minimizing packaging.
It sounds like they're playing the long game, making smart investments today to create a more sustainable and profitable future for their companies and for the planet.
Precisely. They see sustainability not as a cost of doing business, but as a smart business strategy.
I love that.
A way to mitigate risks, enhance their brand reputation, attract top talent, and unlock new opportunities for innovation and growth. They understand that the future belongs to the sustainable.
I hope so. And, speaking of collaboration, this next strategy really puts a fine point on that. Stakeholder engagement. What's the thinking behind that?
It goes back to that idea we talked about earlier, that we're all in this together.
Right.
Sustainable leaders recognize that they can't achieve their goals alone.
Right.
They need to engage with all their stakeholders, their employees, customers, suppliers, investors, and the communities in which they operate.
So it's not just a one-way street where the company dictates its sustainability initiatives. It's about creating a dialogue, a partnership even.
Exactly. It's about listening to their stakeholders' concerns, seeking their input, and involving them in the decision-making process. It's about recognizing that everyone has a role to play in creating a more sustainable future.
That's a powerful message. And it makes me think about the knowledge gap that exists around sustainability. How do these leaders ensure everyone's on board with this new way of thinking? I mean, you can have the best sustainability strategy in the world, but if your employees and customers don't understand it or buy into it, it's not going to get very far.
You're absolutely right. Education is key. And it's not just about classroom learning. It's about creating a culture of continuous learning within the organization and beyond.
So it's not just about training employees, it's about educating consumers as well.
Precisely. It's about empowering everyone involved to make informed decisions.
Oh, okay.
These leaders are investing in internal training programs for employees, developing educational resources for consumers, even partnering with schools and community organizations to raise awareness about sustainability issues.
It's about meeting people where they are and providing them with the knowledge and tools they need to make a difference. Because ultimately, informed action is far more impactful than, uninformed good intentions.
Absolutely. And that knowledge, it empowers people to become advocates for change, not just within the company, but also in their personal lives, in their communities. It creates a ripple effect that extends far beyond the walls of the organization.
Knowledge is power, as they say. But it's one thing to talk about sustainability, it's another to truly embody it. How do these leaders ensure that sustainability isn't just a department or an initiative, but a core value that permeates everything they do?
That's where ethical leadership and governance come into play.
Right.
And it starts from the top down.
Right.
These leaders embody the values they're promoting. They walk the talk in both their professional and personal lives.
It's about authenticity, right? People can spot a phony a mile away. If a leader is preaching sustainability but jet-setting around the world and, racking up a massive carbon footprint, it's going to ring hollow.
Exactly. It's about walking the talk and leading by example.
Right.
These leaders aren't afraid to make tough decisions that prioritize sustainability, even if it means, sacrificing short-term profits.
Right.
They understand that sustainability is not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do for their business and for the world.
So it's not just about vague statements about doing good. It's about clear, measurable commitments woven into the very fabric of the organization.
Absolutely. Many of these companies have dedicated sustainability committees or councils that include representatives from various departments, ensuring that sustainability is considered in every decision. From sourcing materials to designing products to engaging with the community, they're baking sustainability into their DNA.
Wow. It sounds like they're really putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to sustainability. It's not just a PR stunt, it's a fundamental shift in how they do business.
It really is remarkable to see how these companies are integrating sustainability into their DNA. It makes you wonder why all businesses haven't adopted these practices yet,
I know, right?
But I suspect part of it is that, measuring progress in something as multifaceted as sustainability, it can be daunting.
That's a great point. With all this talk about sustainability goals and initiatives, it can be hard to know if your efforts are actually making a difference.
Yeah.
How do these leaders measure their progress?
Right.
How do they know if they're actually moving the needle?
That's where performance measurement and reporting come into play. These leaders, they understand that what gets measured gets managed.
Makes sense.
We're talking about establishing key performance indicators, or KPIs,
Right, KPIs.
to track their sustainability performance.
Okay.
Think things like carbon emissions, energy consumption, water use, waste reduction, even social impact metrics like employee well-being and community engagement.
So it's not just about warm, fuzzy feelings.
No.
It's about hard data.
Exactly. They're not afraid to set ambitious goals and then hold themselves accountable for achieving them.
And they're tracking it.
And they don't just keep this data to themselves.
Right.
They publish regular sustainability reports, often verified by third-party auditors,
Oh, wow. To prove it.
to demonstrate their commitment to transparency and accountability.
So it's not enough to just talk the talk, they have to walk the walk and then prove it with data. Transparency seems to be a recurring theme here.
Absolutely. It's about being open and honest about their impact, both positive and negative, and always striving to improve.
Always iterating.
And it's not just about looking good in the eyes of, consumers and investors. It's about driving real, measurable progress toward a more sustainable future.
It's about putting their money where their mouth is and then showing everyone the receipts. Speaking of data, it seems like technology would play a crucial role in all of this. I mean, we're talking about tracking a lot of information, right?
You're spot on. These leaders they're leveraging the power of technology and data analytics to supercharge their sustainability efforts.
Supercharge. I like it.
They're not just collecting data, they're using it to make smarter decisions, optimize their operations, and even predict and prevent future challenges.
So they're not just looking in the rearview mirror. They're looking ahead.
Think of it like a sustainability dashboard
Okay.
that gives them this real-time view of their impact
Live.
and helps them identify areas for improvement.
That's cool. It's like having a crystal ball for sustainability. It allows them to anticipate and address issues before they even arise.
Exactly. It's about being proactive, not reactive. Take something like supply chain management.
Okay.
These leaders are using technology to track their products from source to shelf, ensuring that every stage of the supply chain meets their ethical and sustainability standards.
So they know where their raw materials are coming from,
Yeah.
how they're being produced, how they're being transported, everything.
It's about transparency and traceability. They're shining a light on every stage of the supply chain, to eliminate blind spots and ensure that their products are ethically and sustainably sourced.
I recently read about a company that's using AI to track deforestation in the Amazon rainforest in real time. Can you believe that's even possible?
It's incredible, isn't it?
It's wild.
It's just one example of how AI is changing the game when it comes to sustainability.
Right.
They're using it to optimize energy consumption in their buildings, develop more sustainable products and packaging, even engage with their stakeholders in new and innovative ways.
It sounds like AI is becoming an indispensable tool for any leader who's serious about sustainability.
It is.
Wow.
It's allowing them to analyze data on a scale that was unimaginable just a few years ago,
Right.
unlocking insights and solutions that were previously hidden from view. It's a powerful tool for good.
It's amazing to see how technology, which is often blamed for many of the world's problems, can also be part of the solution. It all comes down to how we choose to use it.
Absolutely. It's a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for evil. These leaders are choosing to use it for good, and that's a powerful testament to their commitment to sustainability.
That's a good point. This has been incredibly insightful. It feels like we've gone from theory to real-world applications in such a comprehensive way.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has.
And speaking of real-world applications, it might be helpful to look at some concrete examples of companies that are truly, living up to these ideals.
Right. Because it's one thing to talk about the principles of sustainable leadership. It's another thing entirely to see them in action. Do you have any examples that might resonate with our listeners?
Absolutely. In fact, the research highlights a couple of companies that have become synonymous with sustainable business practices. Patagonia, which we've already touched on,
Great.
and Unilever, a global consumer goods giant.
Unilever, that's a big one. They're behind so many household brands. What have they done that's so groundbreaking?
Well, under the leadership of their former CEO, Paul Pullman, Unilever implemented this bold and ambitious plan
Okay.
called the Sustainable Living Plan.
I've heard of that. Can you refresh my memory? What was it all about?
It was a comprehensive plan that aimed to decouple their growth from their environmental footprint while simultaneously increasing their positive social impact.
Okay.
They focused on three key areas: improving health and well-being, reducing their environmental impact, and enhancing livelihoods.
Decoupling growth from their environmental footprint. That's ambitious. How did they plan to achieve that?
They set ambitious targets for reducing their greenhouse gas emissions, water use, and waste.
Wow.
Plus, they committed to sourcing 100% of their agricultural raw materials sustainably. They weren't afraid to set the bar high and hold themselves accountable.
Wow, that's a lot to tackle. Did they actually manage to make a dent in those areas?
You bet they did.
Really?
They've been recognized for their efforts in reducing deforestation in their supply chain, promoting sustainable agriculture, and empowering women in their workforce.
That's amazing.
And the best part is they did all of this while continuing to grow their business.
That's incredible. It really goes to show that sustainability and profitability aren't mutually exclusive. They can actually go hand in hand.
Exactly.
Amazing.
And that's the key takeaway here. These companies are demonstrating that doing good for the planet and its people is not just the right thing to do, it's also good for business. It's a win-win scenario.
It's inspiring to see companies like Unilever leading the charge, showing the world that a more sustainable and equitable future is possible. But I think it's important to address something that I know a lot of our listeners are thinking right now. While it's great to talk about the ethical and environmental benefits of sustainable leadership, at the end of the day, most leaders are primarily concerned with one thing: the bottom line. What's the ROI of sustainability?
You've hit the nail on the head. At the end of the day, leaders want to know what's in it for their organizations.
Right.
And the research, it makes a compelling case that sustainable leadership isn't just good for the planet.
Okay.
It's good for the bottom line.
Okay, so break it down for us. What are some of the tangible benefits?
Well, for starters, there's financial performance.
Mhm.
Companies that adopt sustainable practices are seeing increased revenue, cost savings, and improve access to capital.
Those are some pretty compelling benefits. Can you give us some specific examples of how sustainable practices are translating into financial gains?
Absolutely. Let's start with energy efficiency.
Okay.
By investing in energy-efficient technologies and practices, companies can significantly reduce their energy consumption,
Okay.
which directly translates into lower operating costs.
Makes sense. Lower energy bills mean more money in the bank.
Exactly. And it's not just about cutting costs, it's also about tapping into new revenue streams.
Okay. How?
Consumers are increasingly demanding sustainable products.
Right.
And companies that can meet that demand are reaping the rewards.
It's like we've reached a tipping point where sustainability is no longer a niche market. It's becoming mainstream.
It is.
Consumers are voting with their wallets.
You're right. And investors taking notice as well.
Okay.
There's a growing pool of capital out there, specifically looking for companies with strong ESG credentials.
ESG, there's another acronym for you. For those who don't know, that's environmental, social, and governance, right?
That's right. Investors are realizing that companies that prioritize ESG factors are they're often better equipped to manage risks, adapt to changing regulations, and capitalize on new opportunities. They're seen as safer and more resilient investments in the long run.
It's like sustainability is becoming a key indicator of a company's long-term viability and success.
Precisely. It's no longer just a nice to have. It's a must-have for any company that wants to thrive in the 21st century.
So we've got financial performance, increased consumer demand, and improved access to capital. What else?
Well, we can't forget about the employees.
Right, of course.
The research highlights increased employee engagement and retention as another major benefit of sustainable leadership.
That makes perfect sense. People want to work for companies that align with their values.
Exactly, especially younger generations entering the workforce.
Gen Z and all that.
Millennials and Gen Z, they're looking for purpose-driven organizations that are, making a positive impact on the world.
Right.
They want their work to have meaning beyond just a paycheck.
And when employees feel good about the work they're doing and the company they're working for, they're more likely to be engaged, productive, and loyal.
Right.
It's a win-win for everyone involved.
Absolutely. It's about creating a workplace where people feel valued, respected, and empowered to make a difference.
It's about fostering a sense of shared purpose, a feeling that we're all in this together.
And that can be incredibly powerful, both for the individual employee and for the organization as a whole.
Okay, so we've got happier, more engaged employees. What else?
Well, how about risk management?
Okay.
Companies that prioritize sustainability are often better equipped to manage risks, both internal and external.
Can you elaborate on that a bit? What kind of risks are we talking about here?
We're talking about a wide range of risks, from environmental risks like climate change and resource scarcity, to social risks like labor unrest and supply chain disruptions, to regulatory risks like changing environmental regulations. The world is becoming this increasingly volatile and unpredictable place, and companies need to be prepared for anything.
And it sounds like sustainable companies are better equipped to weather those storms.
Exactly. By proactively addressing these risks, they're building more resilient and adaptable businesses
Okay.
that are better positioned to navigate uncertainty and emerge stronger on the other side.
So they're not just reacting to crises as they rise, they're anticipating and mitigating risks before they even materialize. It's about being proactive, not reactive.
You got it.
Love it.
It's about thinking long-term, not just short-term. And that long-term thinking, it pays off in the form of increased resilience and reduced exposure to risk.
It's like building a stronger foundation for your business, one that can withstand the inevitable storms that lie ahead.
Exactly. It's about future-proofing your business against the unknown.
So we've talked about financial performance, employee engagement, risk management. Any other perks to sustainable leadership?
How about innovation?
Okay.
Sustainability is a hotbed for innovation.
Really?
Companies that embrace sustainable practices are often the ones leading the charge in developing new technologies, products, and business models.
I can see that. When you're constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible, you're bound to stumble upon some groundbreaking innovations along the way.
Exactly. And it's not just about inventing new technology, it's also about finding creative solutions to existing problems. It's about challenging the status quo and asking, how can we do this better? How can we do this in a way that's better for the planet and for people.
Right, yeah. Can you give us an example of a company that's successfully innovated in the sustainability space?
Absolutely. A great example is Interface,
Interface.
a global flooring manufacturer.
Okay.
You might not have heard of them, but well, they make those carpet tiles you see in offices everywhere. What's remarkable is that they've been on a mission to become a restorative enterprise since the 1990s.
Wow.
And their journey is a testament to the power of sustainable innovation.
What have they done that's so remarkable?
They've completely transformed their business model, from their manufacturing processes to their product design, all with a focus on reducing their environmental impact. They've developed innovative materials and technologies that allow them to create carpets and flooring tiles using recycled and bio-based materials.
Cool.
They even take back old carpets and recycle them into new products, creating a closed-loop system.
Wow. That's true. Sustainability in action, turning what was once considered waste into a valuable resource.
It is.
Huge.
And their innovation hasn't happened in a vacuum,
Right.
It's been driven by their commitment to sustainability, by challenging the status quo and seeking new ways of doing things. They've not only reduced their environmental footprint, but they've also created a competitive advantage for themselves in the marketplace.
Wow, that's amazing.
They're proving that sustainability and innovation go hand in hand.
It's a powerful reminder that sustainability can be a catalyst for creativity and ingenuity.
Absolutely. It forces you to think differently, to challenge assumptions, and to push the boundaries of what's possible.
This has been an amazing deep dive into sustainable leadership. We've covered so much ground, from the defining characteristics of a sustainable leader to the practical strategies they use, the role of technology, inspiring success stories, and the compelling ROI of sustainable practices.
We've seen that sustainability is not just a moral imperative.
Right.
It's a smart business strategy.
It's about creating a world where businesses can thrive while also making a positive impact on the planet and its people. It's truly inspiring to see these companies, large and small, stepping up and proving that a more sustainable and equitable future is it's within reach.
And the truly inspiring thing is that, well, they're not alone.
Right.
There's this growing movement of companies,
Yeah.
large and small, who are realizing that sustainability, it's not just good for the planet.
Right.
It's good for business.
Yes.
It's like we're on the cusp of a paradigm shift, a fundamental change in how we think about business and its role in the world.
It's like we're finally moving away from that old, outdated model of business as usual, where profits were king and the environment and social issues were, an afterthought.
Exactly. We're moving towards a new model, one where sustainability is woven into the very fabric of the business.
Yeah.
Not just relegated to a separate department or like a line item in the annual report.
Right.
It's a more holistic and interconnected approach, recognizing that business, well, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's part of a larger ecosystem.
It's about recognizing that we're all connected, businesses, people, the planet, we're all in this together. And that brings us to a crucial question that I've been pondering throughout this deep dive. We've talked a lot about the what and the how of sustainable leadership, but I think it's equally important to talk about the why. Why does this matter so much, especially now?
It matters because the challenges we're facing as a global society, well, they've never been greater.
That's true.
Climate change is no longer this distant threat. It's a present reality.
It is.
Resources are becoming scarcer. Inequality is on the rise. We're at a crossroads. And the choices we make today will determine the course of our future.
The stakes have never been higher. It's a daunting thought, but it's also empowering because it means we have the power to shape that future.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And that's where sustainable leadership comes in.
Right.
Because it's not just about doing less harm. It's about actively creating a better future. It's about being part of the solution, not the problem.
It's about leaving the world a better place than we found it. It's about building a legacy of positive impact, not just for ourselves, but for generations to come.
Absolutely. And that's a legacy worth striving for.
Well said. This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening and inspiring. We've explored the challenges, the opportunities, and the incredible potential of sustainable leadership. We've seen that it's not just a trend or, a buzzword. It's a fundamental shift in how we think about business and its role in the world.
It's about recognizing that we can do well by doing good, that profit and purpose are not, they're not mutually exclusive. They can actually go hand in hand.
They can. So to our listeners, we leave you with this. What actions will you take based on what you've learned today? How will you use your influence, no matter how big or small, to make a difference in your own corner of the world?